Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years. Thine alabasters cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Welcome to Trigger Warnings, challenging talk radio, with a musical introduction brought to you by me, Chris Smith. John Ross is on the line, back from his recent win in the Electoral College. John, how are you?
It was a landslide. It was one of the biggest landslides in history.
The alabaster cities are gleaming today, as they have since Election Day. It's been over a month, hasn't it?
It has been. It has been 4 weeks and 2 days. No, it is 4 weeks today. No, it is 5 weeks today. We're having fun.
Well, in the last 5 weeks, we've seen a lot of appointments, a lot of just a lot of tweeting. Can't forget the tweeting. And America is changing. The man has not even been inaugurated. But here on Trigger Warnings, Challenging Talk Radio.
Trigger Warnings.
Trigger Warnings, that's the name of the show. We've been at it for a while now. I mean, months and months. And we saw Trump a-comin'. And John proudly did call it 5 weeks ago, or a little more than 5 weeks ago now, and said he may not actually, she may not actually sweep the country in the way they thought. Now we are left with what we are, and this show has taken a turn. It's taken a turn, John.
Sure. Sure, it's taking a turn.
Well, I mean, I feel compelled to sing songs from. What year do you believe that verse was written by Catherine Bates? The one that I started the show with.
No, she wrote it over many seatings. She kept writing verses for it.
Well, no. I'm going with the truthiness of the Reader's Digest Family Songbook, which is. I
believe it was about 1870-something?
1893, that's correct. If Reader's Digest says it, I don't know where you got your information, but, well, hey, Trigger Warnings, Challenging Talk Radio. We are proud to be fake news followers and supporters for longer than, has been fashionable. We love fake news, and each program we bring you a couple articles. And this week, I've got one. John's got one.
Well, I have two, but
you have two.
But the second one, the first one I sent was kind of an interesting, intriguing thing. I think the second one is more interesting. But we are certainly leading off with your opus.
It's not my opus. It was written by Michael Cohn. It was published in Boston Globe. December 8th. The title, Who Will Stand Up to Donald Trump? And I'm gonna spare you. I can't handle the negative anymore. I'm trying to really cull it from my psyche while still trying to remain engaged. But here's your last paragraph from Michael Cohn in the Boston Globe. There are so many reasons to be fearful of a Trump presidency, but the ease with which he uses his bully pulpit to lash out at practically anyone who displeases him should send chills up the back of any freedom-loving American. These are the actions of an authoritarian, one backed up by his unquestioning supporters who are all too happy, it seems, to translate his words into actions. Earlier in the article, he went on about the guy and the Pizzagate and the rifle. And worst of all, there is evidently no one who can tell Trump to knock it off. Not the quarter of sycophantic aides who indulge his childish animosities, not cowardly congressional Republicans too fearful of upsetting Trump's supporters or inflaming the man himself, and not the cable news networks and mainstream media who treat Trump's actions as a topic of political debate rather than as evidence of his derangement. Last sentence, the president-elect is the most dangerous man in America. I lied. Here's the last sentence. The question now, for which there is as yet no answer, is, who will stand up to him? So, John, my question is not just who will stand up to Trump, who is still standing up for Trump? That's what I've been really seeking, specifically.
Who's standing up for him or who's standing up to him?
Both. I'd like a full exploration of the demographics. Please.
Well, see, I don't know. In terms of who's standing up for him,
Yes.
You've seen a lot about, I mean, there's just been some fascinating bits that have come out in recent weeks about his constituency. You know, that they have, what came out this weekend, and Meet the Press did a feature on it, was they have lower life expectancies. They have higher rates of opioid abuse and suicide and all that. And they're still sticking up for him because even though he has appointed essentially a cabinet for the most part of millionaires and billionaires, which is his right to do, people say that's okay. We want people with no experience. We want people from the outside who have experience building businesses and all that. So, they're still sticking up for him, although I saw one really incredible statistic last week. Approval ratings. Now, usually, in the weeks between the election or the months between the election and the inauguration, there's a movement of, it's usually short-term kind of honeymoon support or general goodwill toward the president-elect, even from those who didn't vote for him. Not so. I mean, the approval ratings and disapproval rate are exactly margin of error as to what the electoral totals are. It's 48 for, 48 against. The voting and the votes are still being counted, why I don't understand, but 46-48 is the running tote on the electoral, on the popular vote. So it doesn't seem as if there's been any movement, period, that except at the stock market, that Wall Street seems to have gotten over whatever real or fake news reports there were of its temerity over Donald Trump. So I guess there's been no movement whatsoever in terms of who likes him and who doesn't like him, at least in terms of public opinion, except that Wall Street doesn't seem to be freaking out. In terms of who's against him and who will stand up to him, this piece was written on December 8th. We are now, that was Thursday. Since then, Rex Tillerson has come out of a deep gusher somewhere and become the Secretary of State designee. And quite clearly, the people who are standing up to Trump within his own party or intend to are named McCain, Graham, and perhaps Rubio. Trump is all systems go. He's going to nominate this guy, and he's going to take it to the well. So we'll see very early on if people are standing up to him, if their resistance works, and if, in fact, there will be any reverberation off of that. Because you only need 3 Republican votes against to kill this nomination. it seems like, and this is just one of many controversial nominations. So, I think short term, I think people are standing up to him. Now, as I have mentioned to you before, when I look at the Trump personality and this kind of authoritarian-ish persona with a very small, tight inner circle, I keep thinking of one of the great named fictional characters in cinematic history, Greg Stilson. Who was Greg Stilson? I'm going to turn it over to you now because I'm sure you know this.
I have no idea.
Greg Stilson is the authoritarian character from the Stephen King novel and great film, The Dead Zone, who becomes president of the United States and nukes the world. And I see that played by Martin Sheen, by the way. I see that character and temperament sometimes in Trump, and how he just kind of throws things out and doesn't really care. He cares if they stick, but he doesn't care if they have any reason to be said. And that's kind of where I think this is going. I think Republicans will stand up to him. Clearly, because no Democrat was appointed to the cabinet. He dangled some things in front of a couple of Democrats, but no red state Democratic senators bit or were appointed. So I think that suggests that the Democrats will probably have a united front against him early. And, we'll see. I mean, the thing is, we don't know what his response is, what kind of game he's going to play. If he's going to play kind of his own little negative, enemies list kind of approach, which I don't think will work against the John McCain. I really don't. I don't think it's going to work against a McCain or a Lindsey Graham. I just don't see that happening. Now, whether they'll hold firm or go with the party is another story. But, the people who supported him are supporting him, doubling down. The people who hated him are doubling down. The polls show it. The American government and where we're going really is going to depend on the votes of a few Republican senators in the end, I think.
Well, again, I will admit my my willing, limited ignorance in this time of American limbo between the election and the inauguration, though I can't be ignorant because there are so many odd things happening. But I do wonder who's with Trump, who will stand with Trump, who will stand against Donald Trump, in the way the Boston Globe put. And I was making a list of people that I wonder where they're at with Trump. An A would be you're 100% with him, rightly or wrongly, you're with the guy. An F would be you're staunchly opposed to everything. I would get a D minus because at one point I did put money into a slot machine in a Trump property in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Yeah, so I can't get an F. But there are some people that I wonder, like Ben Carson. He's going to get, a B plus now because he's willing to take a cabinet post? He's almost with him 100%? Ben Carson said some things against Trump in the nomination process, no?
Absolutely. As did Nikki Haley.
How about Al Gore? A D?
What about Al Gore?
Where is his support for Trump? He was willing to meet with the president-elect, and I believe it was for show. Perhaps it was Trump merely dicking with him. No? I mean, I don't know why Al Gore would walk in there.
Well, here's why. And by the way, you know who met with him today and raved about Trump and how he was Kennedy-esque?
Who?
Silent. Bill Gates.
See? He would get a B. And before that, he didn't have any grade at all. Putin. Give Putin a letter grade as far as his support of Trump, his continued support of Trump.
Who? Bill Gates? I have no idea.
No, not Bill Gates. Vladimir Putin.
Oh, Vladimir Putin. Well, Vladimir Putin, there isn't a grade high enough. And obviously, apparently, Vladimir Putin, every time he talks to Trump or talks to Rex Tillerson or any number of Russo files on the Trump campaign, obviously, Vladimir Putin is wearing a suit with the Queen of Hearts embedded on it, because this is a Manchurian candidate scenario, and it's like Trump doesn't even care. I don't think he even knows what the Manchurian candidate is, but he is a Manchurian candidate for Russia, and it's like he doesn't even try to hold it back or hide it or lie about it. I mean, he's denied. He said that the CIA is lying, doesn't know what it's doing, falsely accusing the CIA of not only concluding that the Russians fixed the election, but that they said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which they did not. I mean, he doesn't even care. He is so openly and blatantly and transparently a Moscovian candidate, and doesn't even care. And doesn't care what people think. So the President of the United States is telling his own intelligence community, screw you. You don't know what you're doing. I'm not going to take your briefings, by the way. I'm not having daily briefings from the intelligence community. I mean, there are some precedents here that are strange, like Tillerson and the guy who runs Carl's Jr. on the campus. Those, you expect rich people to do that. But the idea of refusing to take intelligence briefings when you've earned the right to receive them, and to say, though, I'm not taking briefings from people who think that I stole the election or that I indirectly stole the election, that to me is really scary. And that's kind of what's happening here. But none of this is a surprise. None of it is a surprise. All of this is to be expected. It was in the script. It was in the cards. There is nothing about any of this behavior, including these appointments, that should be a surprise. As it should not be a surprise to anyone that he won the Electoral College.
Who will stand against Trump? Who will stand with Trump? Let me give you a few more names, and you give them a letter grade as far as their support of Trump.
Now, or as what I'm projecting?
As of today, Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell does everything down the middle. And he did get his wife a cabinet appointment. So I would say for right now, he's in the B+ range.
But this morning, McConnell was the one disagreeing with with Trump's take on the CIA.
Right, but he also used his power as majority leader to say, no, we're not going to have an independent investigation. We can let Republican-dominated Congress do this.
Okay. So he's in the B range.
So that's playing it down the middle, because he came out in September when the CIA went before the leadership of Congress and said, the Russians are trying to fix the election one way. Can we get bipartisan support to come out against this? Mitch McConnell said no. Now, all we know from the report is that that the only named party who didn't buy it and thought it would be a partisan statement on the administration's behalf to come out and argue that to report the CIA's full disclosure. The only named party in that is Mitch McConnell. We don't know if any other Republican leader in either house came out and said that and agreed. All we know from the reporting is that it's Mitch McConnell. So I would say that probably was enough to get his wife a cabinet appointment. And it's not her first, by the way. She's been in the cabinet before. So I would say Mitch is, because Mitch plays everything down the middle. Even though he's fiercely partisan, I would say he's in the B plus range. Would you agree?
Well, you're more informed than I am, and that's why.
Being informed means nothing, my friend. You know that.
Well, so B is for Boehner. Give me a
Boehner.
Boehner. John Boehner. Remember him?
Boehner's like a D.
Really?
Boehner is so glad he's out. He's made clear he's glad he's out. No, Boehner is, mowing his lawn and getting suntans and.
Two names from the lamestream media. How about Bill O'Reilly? What letter grade would you give Bill O'Reilly for his support of Trump?
Well, it's got to be very high. It's got to be, A, because Bill O'Reilly sees, a business in this. He's going to outlast Megyn Kelly.
Ted Turner.
Does Ted Turner still have a space in the public space? Is he there still?
I don't know. Who will stand with Trump? Who will stand against Trump? Give me 3 names of people that will stand against Trump in new and interesting ways.
I think John McCain, now that he is safely entrenched for life, I think John McCain is going to stand up, because I think I think John McCain is particularly crotchety now, not only because of his age, but because he looks at the guy who beat him and Trump as the two presidents in the peak of the curtain of his career, and he's not very happy. So I think McCain. I think you're asking people who matter who will stand against him. I don't know. Maybe Lindsey Graham.
If John McCain and Pat Leahy were to team up in a graphic novel and become a superhero team, what would the name of that team be? Fighting Trump, of course. Fighting the forces of evil.
Drool Man.
I mean, that is a hell of a graphic novel. I would buy that. I would want to read that. To fictionalize those two.
I have to put the clamp down on your your inclusion of Pat Leahy. And I fear for this reason. One is Pat Leahy is at 70, I believe he's 76 years old. At 76 is among the youngins in the leadership of the Democratic Party. And 2, Pat Leahy, like every other Democrat, is irrelevant. The Democrats have ensured their irrelevance, first by running a horrific campaign that, if there was malpractice attributed, and if you could sue for malpractice, campaign officials, they would owe us a lot of money. And 2, because in response to the election, even before, while it was taking them weeks to even dare to blame Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign for running a bad campaign, they went out and they elected their same leadership in the House, Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, age 230, when you add the 3 ages up. So they have no relevance whatsoever, none. That there is no new blood. They're not promoting new blood. Nancy Pelosi has failed miserably as the leader of that party, the House, 3 of the last 4 elections, miserably, and the whole leadership in any other country would have sacked itself
Did you say
Um,
miserably? Nancy Pelosi, miserably? Nancy Pelosi, miserably?
Nancy Pelosi has done nothing. She was Speaker of the House for 2 terms, and that was nice, and she pushed through a lot of stuff, and she's very effective as a Democratic leader and a good fundraiser. But to make her the continued face of opposition when the Democrats have gotten trounced, in effect, 3 of the last 4 elections, at least they changed their leadership in the Senate because one old guy retired. But the Democrats are stale. And, when Bernie Sanders is talking about running at 78 in 4 years, and that's seen as a positive thing, not that there's anything wrong with Bernie, that's really a bad sign. So, for you to include Pat Leahy as a prospective doddering superhero, with any Democrat in a senior role is irrelevant and should not be included, much less as a superhero in this discussion. They are irrelevant. They have made themselves irrelevant. They should just go away like they would in any other democracy on earth.
Oh my goodness! All right, well all right. Finally, let's wrap it up by asking the question: who will stand up to Donald Trump? Who will? It's only a matter of time, it seems, before someone does get hurt. Perhaps emboldened by Trump's unhinged behavior. Trump supporters are already verbally and physically attacking the same groups Trump scapegoated on the campaign trail. This week, it was a young Muslim woman on a New York subway wearing a hijab. Who knows who's next? Who's going to stand up to him? John McCain?
Yeah, John McCain. John McCain's going to stand up to him. Lindsey Graham will stand up to him. Whether that will be enough, you need 3 Republicans to stand up to him.
John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and
Susan Collins from Maine. There's a Republican. There are 3 Republicans who could form a small gang. Maybe Rand Paul will join them.
Ooh.
For some, Rand Paul said there are certain people he would not support for positions. He said he drove Giuliani out. He said so. Maybe Rand Paul. Maybe Rubio.
And wait, what kind of action do you see this Justice League of America taking?
They vote against his worst or his most glaring appointment. The thing is that they're not going to stop Ben Carson. They're not going to stop the Oklahoma Attorney General, who's the head of EPA, who doesn't believe in climate change. They're not going to stop Rick Perry, who was appointed today, fresh from his performance on Dancing with the Stars. See, that really is a career booster. To run the Energy Department, which 4 years ago he said he wanted to eliminate. They're not going to get rid of those people. They're, the hardliners in the Republican Party, like McCain, like Graham, maybe Rubio. I don't think Rubio's hardline on anything. They're very upset about kowtowing to Russia. And I think at some level, they do really think that what happened with this election, at least in terms of Russia's involvement, is bad, that Putin should not have a foothold like he does, especially with an incoming president. So that's the issue that is an issue that would take them into that place of opposition. Now, whether it'll be successful, whether Trump will make deals with them.
Is there a constitutional provision for a do-over based on collusion with a foreign government?
No.
There is not.
There's no constitutional provision for any of this stuff. There's no constitutional provision for a president-elect having financial conflicts of interest. There is none. Trump said a few weeks ago, somewhat correctly, I can do what I want in terms of, whether he's going to meet in Trump Tower with Indian businessmen and say, can you give me a favorable contract when I'm president? There is no constitutional provision for any of that. So the only recourse is investigative journalism feeding, eating public opinion and congressional oversight. I mean, I think that's it. I think that's it. And, we're 45 years past Woodward and Bernstein. And we don't have an investigative journalism infrastructure today, even like we had 45 years ago when there wasn't, when Bernstein and Woodward kind of invented investigative journalism. So unless the media elite are going to retool in their corporate environment that is much more corporate and consolidated than it was 45 years ago, toward the absolute lost leader of journalism, which is investigative reporting, good luck. Wow, this is really dark and depressing, isn't it?
You're listening to Trigger Warnings, Challenging Talk Radio. It's a challenge. Radical empathy. That's where we're coming from. It's John Ross in Chicago. No, I insist. This program only exists due to the continued existence of the framework for radical empathy in the United States of America. John Ross is in Chicago. I'm Chris Smith from a newly renovated, undisclosed location in New England. John's got a second article. What? What do you want to say?
I wish to get your views on this because I, as usual, am monopolizing the conversation. What do you think? Who will stand for? Who will stand against? What about...
I will stand against. I will stand against, and I have been in conversation recently with a number of organizations about new and innovative ways to stand against. I appreciate the. I will say it has gone viral. I doubt any lamestream media will, but there's this article going around. Some 18-year-old woman wrote Trump quotes on her body, like on her back, and then took photos and made this like art project of her naked body with these Trump quotes on it. Now, that no one could have seen coming. And whether you're Ted Turner or Bill O'Reilly, or anybody else that has been named in this program so far, I've seen that shared like hundreds of thousands of times. I've seen 3 different articles about this 18-year-old. Just people inventing their own clickbait version of the story, hoping to profit off of her set of images. Well, I don't even think she made it to become clickbait. She made it to become a political protest that happens to be visually appealing to the internet. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Who will stand up to Trump? People we haven't even heard from. I'm interested in Trump supporters, former Trump supporters standing up to Trump. And I'm interested in hearing from a couple celebrities, but I don't even know who the heck supported the guy. I know Jim Comey didn't, and I know a lot of people were upset about some emails, but I don't know who really rallied for this guy. Not even the Duck Dynasty idiots will come out of the woodwork. And it's looking really grim. He's making one bad decision after another.
Busey?
Yeah, Gary Busey.
Yeah.
Come on now. Ted Nugent?
Come on, Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly.
Have you ever heard of a Gary Busey appearance on the Howard Stern show? He's kind of pickled himself. It is very grim when it comes to the pro-Trump mechanisms. They existed prior to the campaign, and this week the president-elect admitted how lock her up played well before the election, and now he has no intention of doing any such thing. So who will stand up to Trump? People who realize how duped they were. And I don't know what it's going to take.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean,
No?
because he's going to have a long honeymoon period with those supporters because he's not from politics. So I mean, there was a study that came out, and I heard about it. I did not find it. I need to find it because I think it's very useful. PPP did a poll on, and I'm looking it up now. PPP is a Democratic polling firm that has been pretty good in picking, campaigns. But PPP came out with a poll last week, and I believe I'm opening it up now. It came out with a study about Trump. We should cover this in another week. Trump supporters believe about affairs and how the role of fake news or things that sound like fake news. And I think that this is an interesting profile of kind of where things are and who's going to stick up for him. Almost half of Trump voters don't believe or are unsure that California's vote should even be tabulated as part of the national vote. 40% of them believe that he won the popular vote. 73% believe that George Soros is paying people to protest Trump. Only 54% of Trump voters think that the story about the pizza parlor in D.C. and the child sex ring is false. I mean, almost half of Trump supporters believe that was going on or is going on or aren't sure that it isn't, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, you know what? I'm sorry, but if anybody said that about you, if anybody alleged the Pizzagate story about you or me or most other rational people, no, let me say that. Let me say rationable people. Okay, if anybody said that, wouldn't you get on the horn to your lawyer and sue them for defamation of character and or libel and or slander? Isn't that the appropriate litigious response?
You mean that the restaurant should be suing people?
I mean, the restaurant should be suing people. Podesta should be suing people. The Clinton machine should be suing people.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm very struck by the fact that there's absolute silence. I don't believe that story for a second, but I'm totally baffled as to why there would be no response whatsoever from the other side. Not even a condemnation, Like, come on.
I mean, the other thing is that the guy who pushed that as a fake news story, or pushed others like it as fake news, did a very interesting interview, from his house with MSNBC, and he said, "Yeah, I made about $8,000 on this article," and he was just so cavalier about it. Well, and he wasn't trying to say, "Well, I probably wouldn't do it again," given that the guy went into the restaurant with a gun. But he didn't, he didn't sit there, crying about, "Gosh, I really did a bad thing." Well, maybe I wouldn't do it again. This whole mindset that everything that's written is false, and I'm going to go find my own truth. This is, you have, and I always thank you for it, have called me a Luddite many times when it comes to social media. This is social media at its absolute worst, and I don't think there's anything that can be done about it. I think that we have created the monster. The monster is out of the box.
It's out of no box whatsoever. It's out of as much of a box as a Big Mac is out of a cardboard box. I mean, Zuckerberg. These people can collude with the government. They have and they will. And they're going to crack down leaders of social media organizations. right? We are all buying into a private corporate enterprise when we log on and generate content for free for these content providers, right? And maybe that's going to happen. Maybe in the first couple years of the Trump administration, we will realize that, that's the place that, yes, we share these political thoughts, but also they are tailored to the interests that operate these websites. Facebook was never part of the vision of Tim Berners-Lee when he came up with the World Wide Web.
Right.
So,
and you can't put the monster back in the box because there is too much easy profit, too much entitlement among everyday citizens around the world that they have and should have free and open access to the World Wide Web, and that that the free market dictates that people can choose to read what they want, they can choose to trust what they want, they can choose to publish what they want. And, yes, Facebook, anybody could say, well, we're going to be the judge and jury as to whether this is truthful, whether it's accurate. But Facebook's not in the journalism business. Facebook's in the money-making business. And when it and Twitter and the others that are at the dominating social media became publicly traded companies, those days of responsibility and accountability to anything but shareholder value first went out the door. So it's not going to happen. I don't see it happening. We're in that era, and we are going to have an administration that will that has already given credence to this phenomenon, has milked it, has used it to gain office, and I'm not saying it did it illegally or irresponsibly or unethically or under the table. And this isn't going to stop. So I think the monster's out of the box. Facebook isn't going to roll itself back into a nice little cubby hole on the internet now that it's a $1 trillion entity with stock price and ratings from bond agencies. It's not going to happen.
Well, I think we will see a diversification of voices. A continued diversification of voices during the Trump administration.
I think that maybe the only way to respond to this, frankly, is for Luddites of the world to unite. I mean, I think, to go cold turkey, to go all Lysistrata on the internet, and the people who make money off of it this way might be the only way to do it. But to do that, they'd have to go social media to fight social media. And, I don't think it's going to happen. Although Luddites of the world unite is a pretty good tagline, if nothing else.
For you, I can't do that. I can't do that. R. Crumb, the cartoonist, somewhere he gave an interview after he moved to France. He said, I never consume content. I only generate content. And I'm paraphrasing, but that principle plays well on the World Wide Web in the 21st century, if you ask me. And to generate at least as much content as you consume, makes it participatory media, no? Anyway, look, it's Trigger Warnings, Challenging Talk Radio, John Ross and Chris Smith. And we are going to move on now.
How much time do we have?
What?
How much time do we have? We have about 15
well,
minutes,
if you ask David Bowie, we've got 5 years. If you ask the
Fight for fighting, got 100 years to live.
If you ask the Mayans, then we're just at the beginning of a new awakening that took place a few years ago. How much time do we have, John? How much time?
I'm talking about in this broadcast. I'm sorry, I should have been.
Well, thanks to thanks to the virtualization of all media, this could go on for days. We could make it a telethon. Do you have any cause in mind?
We should have a crowdsourced telethon.
That would be fun. If we were doing this in real time, then I could do requests.
All trigger warnings all the time.
All right. Well, no, I think we're going to wrap it up here in about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, then in that,
for those that are scheduling around other things.
I would like to bypass then the second article I sent with the May Day thing on it, and go to the other article, because so this is the article about the woman who's at the Kit Kat Ranch. This is about the woman Catherine Stone. Don't we know somebody named Catherine Stone? She's not the same person, but this is from the Washington Post, October 25th. I'm sorry, it is
October
delayed,
25th?
Well, but it was linked to another article. It was linked to another article that I was going to send you today, and it came up, and I think it deserves a few minutes of our dialogue.
Okay,
and I have
fill me in. I'm not familiar with this article. What's the story here?
All right. So this is from the Washington Post Wonk blog column of October 25th, written by Amy Wang, an appropriately named journalist for this article. And it is about the young woman named Catherine Stone.
Oh, yeah, I read this. Okay.
Catherine Stone is a 21-year-old woman who works at the Kit Kat Ranch, which is one of the 18 legal brothels in Nevada. And the headline is, "It's my decision. This woman is auctioning off her virginity to help her family." So she is, she wants to be a lawyer. She's from Seattle. 2 years ago, her family's Seattle home was destroyed by an electrical fire. They had no insurance, so the family basically was out on the street, no resources to pay bills. The parents were actually living in the house at one time. And she actually found a story. This is where the internet is actually good. She found a story about a woman who auctioned her virginity, or attempted to auction her virginity, back in 2008 to pay for college. And I guess she found the guy. There is a brothel owner who owns about 40% of all the legal brothels in Nevada. His name is Dennis Hoff, and she wrote to Dennis Hoff and saying that I would like to work for you, and I would like to offer up my virginity to pay for to put my family back together. Can I use your brothel infrastructure to do that? And he brought her on board, and she has been doing that. So she is now, as of October 25th, I suppose I could update this. Her price, the top, I guess, is an online auction, for lack of a better term. She was up to $400,000. And I guess Koff gets roughly half of it as the pimp. But she is saving herself for the right person after she saves herself for the highest bidder. So I guess she helps out in the brothel. She's often in the rooms while work is going on, but she doesn't participate in the work part. She kind of helps out.
Okay.
Massages, stuff like that. So my question to you,
yeah, what's your question?
given that she, that the bids 6 weeks ago were up to $400,000 for her virginity, is knowing what you know now and knowing what you know about this young woman and others, would you take back your lost virginity and place it to the highest bidder if you had a chance?
Oh, would I sell pieces of my life experience?
Well, that's one way to put it.
Yeah. This is in a large.
How much?
The loss of one's virginity is in a category of life experience events, right? That I guess one could sell access to or replacement of those events with a third person. Yeah, I mean, you could. Would I? No, I got better things to do. I'd rather be poor. Are you kidding? I'd rather be very poor.
See, here's the thing about losing your virginity. There are other life experiences, and you're right, that that are yours, but only you experience them, right? By definition, by explicit definition, to lose your virginity requires at least a second person. So I think that as life experiences go, is a shared life experience. The person with whom you are having sex may not be losing his or her virginity with you, but
this is horrific, though. This is horrific. People that would want to pay, no, this is horrific. So would I? No. Would you? Would you?
Given what I know now and what I'm reading about her, yeah.
Wow.
Maybe I could pay off my student loan. Are you kidding?
Higher education. Oh my goodness.
I would, you know what? I think one of the most fun words to say, hopefully I'm using it in proper context, and it'll be the second time I'm using it on this broadcast, is crowdsource. If I knew that I could crowdsource the shared experience of my virginity when I lost it, and I could get the money for it, are you kidding? Yeah, I'd do it.
All right, to what extent would I be willing to resign my personal integrity for the opportunity to forgive in some my student loans? Yeah, we could. That's a whole program. Tune in next week, folks. Our year in review. No, I'm gonna end. That's a good one. That was a good one. Let me wrap this broadcast up with a similarly horrific moral dilemma that my scout troop and I developed around a campfire once. John, if you enter a porta potty, okay, you're at a concert. It's a well-used porta potty, but unfortunately you're gonna have to use it and you're gonna have to sit down. And you enter the porta potty, but before you sit down, you look down in and you see floating on top a $5 bill. A $5 bill. Do you go after it?
Unless I absolutely needed the $5 to eat or somehow survive, the answer is no, of course not.
Okay, how about a 20?
Pretty much the same answer. Now, if it were some
wait, how about 100?
Keep going.
$1,000 bill floating atop a pile of human feces inside of a porta potty. You're gonna get dirty, but you would go and you would retrieve that $1,000 bill.
And I sleep with Robert Redford too. Same thing, absolutely. Yeah.
So at any denomination from $1,000 up, you're in.
Good question. I don't. You know, I don't know.
Well, I do. We all know a lot more about you now, John. This has been Trigger Warnings. You gonna sing with me? It's the second verse. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet, whose stern, impassioned stress a thoroughfare for freedom beat across the wilderness. America, America, God mend thy every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty